Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of today's episode is WTF with ESP. Is it QED or BFD? so John, just to decipher that, today we're going to be looking at extrasensory perception, or ESP.
Yes, we are.
WTF, I think everybody knows what that means.
Yes.
ESP is obviously extrasensory perception.
Yes, but what's QED?
QED is the abbreviation for the Latin phrase quod erat demonstrandum, which is what you put at the end of a logical argument. Like if you make a logical argument. And it basically means that which has been demonstrated. So you're kind of saying, that's the end of my argument, and I've made my argument.
Right. It's like on press releases where they put the pound symbol at the hashtag at the bottom, the three hashtags. It's like, this is it. Yeah. I don't know why. That's like an old school.
Yeah. Roger and out or something. Is what
yeah, exactly. And done.
Yeah. And then BFD, I think everybody knows as well. So I think when you put it all together, WTF with ESP, is it QED or BFD? It essentially means what's going on with extrasensory perception. Is it for real, or is it something I don't really need to care about?
That's right. Finally, those of you, I mean, there's been a lot out there about ESP, but finally, Intro to Anthro is going to get to the bottom of it and once and for all answer the question.
Yeah. And before we go any further, I have to say you have something, and this isn't ESP. You've told me that you have something going on tomorrow.
Yes, I do. I have a colonoscopy tomorrow. For those, if anybody out there is going, what's that? That means you're young, because when you hit 50, that's when I had my first one. Was at 50.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was every 10 years because I don't have a history of it in my family. But for some reason, I'm 58. My doctor's like, time to go back in. So the colonoscopy it reminds you that you're a human being. You're an animal. You're a primate, and it reduces you to because you have to take I guess you sort of fasting and clean yourself out so they can shove a camera up your butt. And boy, there's nothing that kind of, you know what I mean? It evens everything out. Every billionaire, all of us. It doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a camera up your butt, and so
you're in the middle
phase. I'm in the middle of the fasting phase. Yes.
And you have to take a lot of, because I've had one, and you have to drink a lot of stuff that.
Yes. The first time, this was 8 years ago, they just gave me like a couple of bottles, as I recall. It wasn't big, but this doctor, I go to the Rite Aid to pick it up. It's a jug. It's like a half-gallon jug.
Does it have XXX on it?
It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
The guy at the Rite Aid just hands me this jug that's it's empty. It's empty. It's just got the medicine in it. And then you fill it up to a line with water, and then you drink that the whole day. And I'm currently on my last glass.
Was it
as we are?
Was it a pharmacist at the Rite Aid, or just somebody at the Rite Aid?
And it's like, he hands me a jug. And I'm just like, okay. I'm just humiliated. The whole thing is just sort of humiliating, and it just reminds you, hey, you ain't nothing. Everybody's the same.
Just wait till they put you out. I can't wait for my neck. That was the best, most fun I've had, best sleep I've had since I quit drinking. Was when I went in for my colonoscopy.
The drugs they get. Well, it's what killed Michael Jackson and Prince, and it's the good stuff. It's the good stuff.
Fantastic. All right. Well, but there you are. You're taking some more, but we may have to take a break in case you have an incident in
That's
this.
right. That's right. There's a possibility. Although there isn't much left inside me. I'm an empty vessel.
Keep it strong. Keep it strong. Clinch down and get through the show.
Yeah.
So
It
the
adds
show must go
like
on.
a ticking time bomb to the show. It's like a ticking clock. We
Well,
don't know.
let's not waste any time because we don't know how long you'll be with us. So, John, as you've mentioned, there was a time when people were really into ESP, like back
Yes.
in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah. Growing up, it was a big deal. People were just talking
Right.
about it all the time.
Right.
And I've dated some women who I believe knew had a sensory perception. They could. I don't know. I'm thinking of one woman in particular. She just knew stuff. It was crazy. It was just wild.
What, like knew when you were lying?
This was back when I was drinking, so things the wheels were off the wagon. But yeah, she just kind of could. I mean, she was just, I guess she was just, intuitive, a super intuitive person.
Right.
And was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say there was a time when knowing what people were thinking or doing used to be a valuable psychic gift. And now I was thinking about it. We have social media.
Right. Now we don't need to know.
Yeah.
You're right. That's so true. Everybody's
everybody's just...
You'll know everything about everybody, even colonoscopy, everything. Everything's out there now.
Right. I mean, people are putting on what they're feeling at that moment, what they're eating, where they're at, what they did last night.
So true.
It's another... technology has put another group of people out of work, and I think that's psychics.
Yeah, that's so funny. You're absolutely right. Good point.
But I guess it could still be used to see into the future. Maybe that's something.
Yes. And do you have any ESP? Have you ever, experienced anything? Like, can you tell me how my colonoscopy is going to go tomorrow?
So what does it matter? You won't remember it once you get put under it.
It doesn't matter.
I don't think I have any, but I'll tell you, when I remember I used to live in Chicago at one time, and I worked on North Michigan Avenue for the Italian government.
I was instrumental in getting you up there.
Right. And I'll tell you a story. On our floor, on our building on Michigan Avenue, there was a very famous psychic that had an office on our floor.
And I did not know that.
Yeah. And so I remember...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but is this when you and I were living with a rabbit? And in that apartment in
that was part of it. She was there when
who had a kid and a rabbit, and then it was me and my girlfriend on her waterbed and you during the hottest summer on record in Chicago. There's nothing like being sweaty and having rabbit hair stuck all over you.
Yeah, and our apartment, all the windows faced out to the east, so like you would wake up already drenched and exhausted.
Yep.
Ready for the day to be over.
We even like at one point my girlfriend and I put ice cubes into the waterbed.
Yeah.
To cool the waterbed down, and it worked. It really worked.
Extremely hot. And be sweaty and covered in rabbit fur. Like if you tried to sit on the couch.
It was horrible. It was a rough... That was a rough period for us.
You
and I have been through some tough times, but that one was broke. And I was a cook in a kitchen, and the during that same time, the ventilation system in the kitchen went out.
Oh,
so I remember one time all of us just sitting in the bathtub with the shower going. You remember that?
Yeah,
drinking beers.
Yeah, just trying to get through it. It was just awful. It was awful. But yeah, during that period, I mean, and I say she was a famous psychic because she actually wrote columns for some of the famous tabloids in the country. I would
Wow.
see her
Never told
name
me
and her
this.
home. Yeah.
Wow.
And she was doing really well. I mean, to have an office on Michigan Avenue is one thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so her clients would come because she'd also give readings. And so they would have to come up on the elevator onto my floor. And I'd always see them out there, like if I was going to the bathroom or something. And they'd come off and I'd see them looking around lost. And I'd be like, are you looking for the psychic? And they would be really impressed. They'd be like, yes, how did you know? How did you know? I'd be like, because everybody, it's a stream of people coming up here looking for the psychic. But anyway, she and her husband was a really nice guy. They were an older couple. And he was very friendly. She was very aloof. Like she didn't want to really talk or engage with anybody. And but he was nice. I'd see him a lot, and he would kind of toady up to her. He was kind of like her Renfield. You know what I mean? So he would always. But he was nice, and there was supposed to be a closet in her. This was what the rumor was. There was a closet in her office. It was written into her lease that the building manager or maintenance could not go into that closet without her permission.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And that closet actually backed up against our file room. And it used to always make me wonder, like, what sort of spirit guides or spirits are coming through that wall, you know?
You should have drilled a hole in it, peeked in there.
Oh, God.
It's probably filled with human heads or something horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
She'd have to feast on people in order to keep her abilities flowing.
Oh, that'd be awful. If I drilled through there and just saw her like somewhere like with a rat in her mouth or something, and then scurry off.
Looking right at the hole that you're looking through.
Right when I come through, there's another eyeball looking back up.
Actually, if she had ESP, she'd say, before you even started to drill, she would say, don't do it.
Yeah, it'd be like she wants to see you. She's out front. It'd be like, don't do it.
You hear a knock on your side of the door. She's like, I know what you're about to do.
But it was in the fall of 1990. And it was right before the first Gulf War, right before the invasion. But it was during the buildup to the first Gulf War. If you remember, there was a buildup for like 3 months before that.
Yeah, because he was getting everybody. Bush Sr. was getting everybody in line, building the coalition. He called it.
Right. And I happened to be, for whatever reason, I was on the elevator with her alone this time. Jesus. Usually, her husband was there. As we're going up in the elevator, she looks over at me and kind of almost in a trance says, "There's going to be a war." And my first thought was like,
duh.
Yeah. I was like, no, duh. It's like, of course there's going to be a war.
Yeah,
like,
we see it on CNN every night. Yes, there's going to be a war, you idiot. That's boy, we'll talk about a lob. My God.
I know, that was my thought. It was like, is this what you're giving to your clients that come up, is just like something everybody in the world, the most obvious thing in the world,
Well, you go with what you know first. God, I thought she was going to say something, interesting.
Right. That's what I thought too, because she never talked to me. And I was thinking, if that was like going to the Delphic or, the Oracle at Delphi in ancient Greece, and them telling you, like, first off, you've been on a long journey. It's like, of course I have to get out here to see you.
Yeah.
But I couldn't, even though my first thought was like, no shit, of course, I watch TV too. I couldn't do it. So I had to almost like just say like, really, do you think so? You know what I mean?
Just respectful and considerate.
Right. And she was just kind of like nodded again, like almost trance-like. And then the doors opened and she went off to her office. But I'll never forget that of like, that's the most obvious thing in the world. but if you remember in the 1970s, ESP used to be on In Search Of
Oh
with
yeah,
Leonard
ESP
Nimoy.
was like a big deal.
Right. And then there was the TV show The Sixth Sense with Gary Collins. Do you remember that
Yes.
one?
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, I do.
How about Psychic? And then in the 80s and 90s, there was the Psychic Friends Network. Remember that when
Yes.
you?
Which made a lot of money. And there still is a lot of psychic action out there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge multi-billion-dollar business. But you don't hear the term ESP. That you hear psychic, but you don't hear ESP tossed around. It's kind of fallen out of fashion.
Right. Right. I don't know why.
ESP is more like scientific-y, and psychic is more woo-woo.
Right. Maybe that's
So I
what
think
it is.
maybe it says something about our culture that we're less, because now we're not interested in facts or science. Maybe that's part of where we are as a culture.
Yeah, maybe. I was reading Psychic Friends Network was supposed to be the most. It was an infomercial, so it was like supposed to be the most successful infomercial of all time. I think
of all time.
Yeah.
Knocked everything out. You couldn't get past the squeegee or whatever that weird towel was that you could.
ShamWow. The ShamWow.
ShamWow. That guy, there's some story about that guy, right? He was arrested, or what happened? There's something about the ShamWow guy.
Really?
ShamWow guy.
Yeah, I don't know. We should reach out to we should coal the barrel here and go back and try to find if some of these old products would sponsor our show at this point.
Oh, that's a great. ShamWow. Oh, I don't know.
Psychic Friends, though, was supposed to have gone bankrupt eventually. I think they made hundreds of millions of dollars and then went bankrupt.
Really? So somebody was just stealing from them the whole time?
I don't know what it. Remember, they'd come on late at night when you're drunk and alone. And to be, then I guess people you'd call up and then they charge your phone bill, so you'd probably drunk stay on there forever. I'm saying forever. Probably. I'm talking about a friend.
Yeah, a friend. No, I remember though when we get those phone bills and I'd have to come into your room and we'd have to settle up.
Yeah.
No, but it is true. And then they would frame it up like it's a talk show too, where they'd take calls and stuff.
Yeah. And then there was I never watched the TV show Psych. Did you ever see the TV show Psych?
Yes, and I thought it was pretty good. A friend of ours, Carlos, wrote on it on Psych, and was also appeared on it as an actor. Carlos Jacot, very talented man. Yeah. It was good. It was a really good show. It was clever and fun. It was funny, but it also had, it was a drammer.
Yeah. I think he was that character. From what I was reading, he pretends to be psychic, like he's really just using his observational skills, like Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, exactly.
And then today you see psychics and psychic mediums. Usually you see them on ghost shows or paranormal shows. That seems like where they've ended up.
Yeah.
And I think that the psychic, because I watch a lot of those shows, the psychics add a little drama and mystery to the show.
Right. Because they can get in touch with them, with the ghosts.
I was thinking more that they're able to talk about stuff that's actually not happening on camera, meaning
it fills it out because nothing's really happening in those shows,
right?
And they can
that's
talk
what
about.
I thought.
That's funny. I've always wondered because I live close to Hollywood Boulevard and Sunset there are tons of psychic places. And, the rent is not cheap for these places. It's not cheap. And I've always wondered, wow, they must get a lot of people, a lot of walk-ins.
Right.
To make it worth their while.
Yeah, I would. That's the same with her. I mean, with that woman in Chicago. I mean, she was actually making a lot of money. And And so you would think, I don't know, it's still very popular, I guess.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what we're going to do, and obviously people are obsessed with it because of um, just the number of people doing. Did you go with us to that psychic fair in Chicago that one time? You went with
No,
me
I
to
went
the
to,
Elvis
yes.
impersonator fair.
Yes. And did you come with me to the cat show in Santa Monica? No, maybe that
No,
wasn't
no.
you. Oh, I went to a cat show once too, which was amazing. Just incredible. Highly
I have.
recommend. Highly
I did
recommend.
go to that. I don't know if maybe it was after you had done it, but
Yeah, but we went to the Elvis one. That was great. But
yeah,
no, I did not go to the psychic one. At least I don't recall. Of course, those
yeah.
days are hazy. Maybe I was there.
And again, it's like I remember going in, and the first thing I know, nobody was there, and all the psychics were very upset that nobody had shown up. And again, it
Oh,
makes you wonder, like, yeah, if you were psychic,
wouldn't you have known?
right, right. Um, and I just want to say when you research ESP online or go to Amazon, the first choices that pop up are going to be books that say that ESP exists, and they tell you how to develop your ESP.
Oh,
And it's very hard. I mean, because to come in, not skeptically, but again, to come in and try to find something academic about it.
right.
Um, it's very hard
Well,
to
there's
find.
in the Ghostbusters, there's that opening scene,
Right, right, exactly.
the original Ghostbusters,
Yeah,
where he's flirting with a woman and she gets everything right, even though she's not. And
right.
then he shocks the other guy. It's a pretty funny scene.
Yeah. um, but there's a book by it, so you mostly have to go. You have to look at scientific journals. I had to do a lot of research on again JSTOR and some of the scientific databases. And then there's one book called Flim Flam: Psychics, ESP, Unicorns, and Other Delusions by James Randi,
Oh
who
yeah, Randy, the amazing Randy.
right, right.
Yeah, he was on Johnny Carter, The Tonight Show all the time.
Yeah,
He
he
was
was a
he was a
professional magician. He was a professional
yes,
magician.
and he would try to debunk all of the psychics.
Right, right. And in his book, Isaac Asimov actually wrote the introduction. And
Wow.
Isaac Asimov said, "Folly and fakery have always been with us, to be sure, but it has never been as dangerous as it is now." And then
Ooh.
Asimov says, "The practitioners of pseudoscientific fakery assail conventional science with every weapon of innuendo and falsehood they can think of, and demand that in return scientists be open-minded. They may strike, in other words, but scientists must not return the blow or even parry it." So,
Yes, boy, is that appropriate.
right,
Damn.
right,
God.
right. Asimov, you got
Yeah.
Asimov.
Yeah.
Uh, and so believe me when I say that after this research, I found that for the past 140 years, ESP has been studied extensively by science.
Mm.
But again, it's very hard to find objective evidence about ESP online or on
Anywhere.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's because it's like the TV shows. They're trying to sell books,
Right.
I mean?
Right. Right.
uh, and it's a lot easier to sell books when you're saying something exists rather than we don't know. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Right. 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 Right.
And I came across an article, a 1998 article by Robert Morris, who at that time was the Kessler Chair of Parapsychology at the University of Edinburgh. And
Mm.
Morris said
I've
that,
been to the
quote,
University of Edinburgh. I've walked
"Have
the
you?
halls. Yes, I have.
What were you
They
doing?"
have an excellent pub in the student union at the University of Edinburgh.
Really? Really?
Yes, I was there for the theater festival, and I drank many a Guinness there because they were open later than anywhere else in Edinburgh. So I'd come in after our midnight show, and I would
Yeah.
order 4 Guinnesses, 4 pints, And then it would immediately, the bar would close down, but I'd have my pints and I would just nurse my Guinness.
I was trying to think if you were an exchange student over there, but that makes more sense, I think. Speaking of that, I don't know if you want to tell it. There's a funny story about you meeting a young lady.
Yes. I met a young Scottish lady while I was there. She really was the instigator. She approached me, and she was very confident and gorgeous. And I was sort of shocked by it, to be honest with you. But we had a few drinks, and we ended up making love on the links, which is the natural golf course in Scotland, very famous. And we were making love out there, and it was just amazing.
Yeah.
Just an amazing. I'll never forget it. Of course. I mean, she was gorgeous. The whole thing was amazing. And we finish up, and we look across, and there's an old man sitting there on a bench. And he was pretty far enough away that we didn't notice him until we were kind of putting our clothes back on. And he started clapping. Just gave it
bravi.
Yeah. Oh God! I never saw her again. Saw her again. Yeah.
Really? Anyway, so I mean, this story will mean a lot to you then.
Yes,
this piece of information.
Right.
Robert Morris, Kessler Chair Parapsychology at University of Edinburgh, said that, quote, "Our approach can be described as skeptical, not in the commonly understood sense of the term as disbelieving, but in the proper sense as questioning."
Yes.
So, yes. And I think, as I read that, I was like, I think that's how I am. Like, I'm skeptical of stuff, the paranormal, but it's just because I'm questioning. I'm not saying it exists, doesn't exist, anything. I'm still just questioning about it.
Yes. Whereas I am purely on the other side. I know it's all bullshit.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Like, I know some people who don't believe anything.
Right.
And I know other people who, like, everything that happens in their life is supernatural.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Boy, is that. Yes. Oh my God. There was the bananas were on sale at the 7-Eleven, and that caused me, and it all worked out. It was serendipitous. It was amazing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
Right. And again, to me, it's just like, even if you're a believer, you have to be questioning about things, because as we've mentioned, there are people out there that will take advantage of you and lie to you.
Yes.
And even worse, sometimes you will misinterpret something and lie to yourself. And that's almost even worse when you find out that you've been bullshitting yourself for years.
Well, they fish, like when you see a psychic, they're able to fish a little bit and throw out some things that tend to stick to a lot of people. But you think it's sort of a personal thing, and that's how they begin. That's how they get in. It's really fascinating, the scam side of it. It really is.
Yeah, and again, people will be like, "Well, why would they lie about that? Why would they just do that? What was the advantage to them?" And I'm here to say, I'm a former drunk. It's like, you lie about a lot of things. You know what I mean? About yourself, about other people. I had a brother-in-law that used to go around telling people he was a pilot and he was a member of law enforcement. None of that was true. He was just a big drinker. You know what I mean?
Yeah, amazing.
But when it comes to ESP or any of the paranormal, any science, we need results that are repeatable, that people can replicate, that they can replicate. Yeah. And I'm talking about replicate not just in the people who have done the experiment successfully the first time. It has to be some other lab has to be able to replicate that thing. And that's kind of where we're at right now with ESP, because a lot of the things I read, there's been some positive results that people had, but
Yep.
none of them could be replicated,
Just like
consistently.
fission. Just like fission. We've been able to a lab was able to collide and create
Yeah.
energy from fission, putting atoms together rather than fusion, pulling them apart. But there was just I just saw that it may have been repeated. It may have been
Really?
repeated, and if
What?
that is indeed the case, ooh
Yeah.
man, could that change the world? Can you
Right.
imagine? Because you don't have any waste. You don't have it's amazing. It's the
Yeah.
energy of the sun. That would be it's the same thing that creates the sun's power.
Right.
We could all
Right.
have access to. Holy crap. That would change everything. No more
That would.
batteries, no more fossil fuels, no more nothing. Imagine that.
Just,
We're talking about ESP when there's
yeah.
some big stuff going
There's
down,
a big stuff.
everybody.
Speaking of that, when you said fission, I thought you meant FISHIN.
Oh, going fishing.
I thought you were talking about fission.
Fishing. Well, I'm a
To
little
talk about this-
delirious. I haven't
Yeah.
eaten all day, so I'm barely seeing straight.
I was like, when you brought that up, I was thinking, like, okay, where's he going with this? Fishing.
No, yeah, sorry.
So in the book, The Psychology of the Paranormal, Michael Eysenck and David Groome say the great majority of psychologists are highly skeptical about the existence of ESP, and they argue that demonstrating the existence of ESP requires higher standards of evidence than more other conventional phenomena in psychology. So
Really? Okay.
yeah, and again, it's because people will rip you off. I think.
I see.
But they say, Eysenck and Groome say, as scientists, we also believe that even unlikely phenomena such as ESP deserve to be investigated.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Investigation, yes.
Right. And I think that's where we're at. When we look at it in this episode, we're looking at it, we're going to be questioning. Okay, we're not coming to any conclusions, but we're going to be questioning about it.
Okay, good. I knew you were going to say that.
Really?
Because I can read. No. Yeah, I can read your mind.
I sent you a copy of it. See, that's the whole thing. I've sent you a copy of the outline. I don't know if you're going to actually read that or not.
Yeah,
but that's very impressive.
Yeah, thank you. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, promise me you didn't read it.
I can read it. I can do it.
All right. So what do we mean by ESP, or extrasensory perception? And that means knowledge that we receive by means other than our own known physical senses, the 5 or 6 physical senses that we have.
Yeah.
And it usually refers to several different types of psychical phenomena. And in the book, How to Think About Weird Things, Critical Thinking for a New Age, Theodore Schick and Louis Vaughn say that ESP includes telepathy, which is reading another person's mind.
Yes.
Clairvoyance, which means seeing a distant object without using your own eyes.
Oh, I thought, okay. All right. Yes. Got it. I never knew that's what clairvoyance was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think it can also be, I think they also use it for like spiritual, like you see a spirit or something like that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And then precognition, which is knowing the future.
Yes. God.
And in her article, Who Believes in ESP, Cognitive and Motivational Determinants of the Belief in Extrasensory Perception, Marija Brankovic also includes psychokinesis, which is moving objects with your
stuff.
Right.
That I can do. I can't right now, but I'll do it for you guys later.
Yeah. Are you telling the truth? Are you telling
the
truth?
Yes. I knew you were going to doubt that I was telling the truth, by the way. I read
as
your
long
mind.
as you promise me. As long as you promise.
I promise.
Psychometry, which is reading the paths from an object. That's where someone takes like your keys or something and they can tell you something about you.
What's that one? What's the word?
Psychometry.
Psychometry. Okay.
And I have to admit, I used to work with a woman who was supposedly psychic, and we went out to dinner with her and a couple other psychics. And she practiced psychometry and she asked me for my keys. I gave her my keys. And she said, "I see your father." And I go, "Really?" "Yeah." And she goes, "Yeah, I could see his eyes." But she didn't really tell me what his eyes look like or anything, And
You just said I could see him.
right,
That's
right.
it? Oh,
That was it.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was all she was getting
Yeah.
from it. And then Mary, she was completely off. She's like, "I see you have sisters," and Mary is the only girl in her family. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um, but anyway, and then there's dowsing. Dowsing with the sticks as
Oh,
well, where you
right.
go out.
Finding water.
Right, right.
Oh, that's cool. Now
Yeah.
that's great. I love that one.
And all of these phenomena, these extrasensory phenomena, are usually grouped together into the term psi phenomena, PSI,
Okay.
the Greek
Mhm.
letter psi.
Yeah, because you hear about psyops, the military, secret military operation to try to develop these
Was
things.
it? Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
apparently.
I always thought psyops was like psychological warfare. Like you figure
Oh,
out what,
really?
like,
Oh,
yeah.
shit. Okay, maybe you're right.
Maybe we shouldn't be doing this episode. Or maybe we're not qualified. But I did read, there's a book called Phenomena, which came out a couple years ago, and I did read that one, and that was all about the U.S. government and the Soviet Union back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, trying to develop remote viewing
Yeah,
and spent a lot of money. They spent a lot of
yeah,
money on the research for ESP,
yeah.
and the thing is, it's hard. Those results are hard because you don't know if they really had those results or if it was just trying to fool the other side. You
Right,
know what I
right,
mean?
right.
Um, but it's funny you mentioned psyops because that is they were doing that, like trying to like trying to communicate telepathically with a submarine somewhere in the
Can
world
you
that was under.
imagine if they'd figured out, found some,
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. Who
Of
would?
course, of course, the first thing we use it for is weapons. Like,
Yeah,
it's either weaponry or porn.
right. You
Sex.
could just get porn right into it. There would be
Yep,
a bunch of psychics,
just
naked psychics, just pumping it right into your brain.
right
That's
in there.
brilliant.
Well, soon we'll have
Yeah,
chips in our heads, which will basically do that.
yeah. I always think about that too. Of at some point you could probably, yeah, because you could put like an EEG monitor on your head and control
Yeah.
what you're thinking, and they can use those for like prosthetic limbs or something.
Right.
So it's
Right.
only a short jump from that you can put that same sort of thing on somebody and be able to communicate between people. I think.
Absolutely. It's not if, it's when.
Yeah, yeah. But we got to get the psychic pornography. I think we should
Yeah,
jump out
that
ahead
would
of
be
that one.
huge. Can you imagine?
So, in the ESP Enigma, Diane Powell says that one of the earliest forms of psi phenomena is scrying. Scrying.
Huh. What?
Scrying.
Scrying.
Yeah, and scrying comes from an old English word to descry, which means to catch sight of. And what scrying is when you stare into a polished surface, like a mirror,
Hmm.
uh, and then you concentrate on it, and then you can see the future.
Oh,
So
like a crystal ball is
right,
scrying.
exactly.
Ah.
And Encyclopaedia Britannica says scrying was a form of divination based on the analysis of reflections in water, on polished metal, on precious stones, and it was practiced by early humans who probably interpreted these phenomena as a vision from the spiritual world.
Yikes.
so in ancient Greece, they looked for answers in spring waters. In India, warriors peered into vessels filled with water to see if they'd returned from battle.
Wow.
Um, I found
I
the
get that.
Getty.
It's a mirror is a freaky thing.
Yeah.
A mirror is a really magical, freaky thing.
Yeah.
Do you ever
Yeah.
look at yourself in the mirror and look yourself right in the eyes in the mirror? I
I've
don't
done more
like
than
it.
that.
It
uh,
always freaks me out, man. I
yeah.
don't know. There's something about that. The mirror is a real crazy thing.
What do you think it is about you looking at yourself in the mirror?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But dogs
Yeah.
can't see themselves in the mirror, which is weird. But some can. But most dogs, they look at
Yeah.
a mirror, they don't see another dog in there.
Yeah. How are you when you see yourself on film, for example, afterwards or on
Oh,
video?
everybody hates seeing your. I mean, you got to be I mean, you got to be a super narcissist to like look at yourself on film and love it.
Yeah.
Everybody I
Yeah.
think looks at themselves, or it's like hearing your voice recorded. Like when
Yeah.
I listen
Yeah.
back to the podcast, it's always like, huh. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, but I have gotten to the place where it doesn't make me cringe. I just, see it as like another once I'm in the edit room, I see it as just another actor. I see me as just,
Right.
it,
Right.
it loses the personal connection
That's
to some
interesting.
extent, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then I don't fall in love
Interesting.
with my own stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things with like was it no, it wasn't Sisyphus. Who was it who fell in love with his own image?
Oh,
Was it
narcissist, right? Wasn't it?
Narcissist? Yeah,
Yeah.
Narcissist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh so and Nostradamus too was supposed to he got all of his visions. He would scry in front of a bowl filled with water and herbs.
Yeah. That
So
boy,
he'd be looking.
Nostradamus caused a lot of trouble.
I know.
You don't hear about Nostradamus that much anymore.
Yeah, that was another one in the 70s and 80s. Oh, Nostradamus, he predicted
Nostradamus,
everything,
he
you
predicted
know.
all of this.
But it's like if you're predicting something 500, 600 years in the future from when you're living, like who knows? Yeah, what's the
At some
point? What's
point,
the
it's
point of
gonna happen too. You just wait long enough.
Yeah.
Anything's gonna happen.
Yeah, yeah. I will say one thing, in China they have the I Ching, which is
Mhm.
traditionally you'll pull sticks out of a bundle of sticks.
Right.
And you can also throw coins, or there's
Mhm.
also sticks that you could throw the sticks, and then there's a book that comes with it, and you can read a fortune based on the stick that comes out.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, and when we back in 2003, I was going through a divorce from my first
Mhm.
wife,
Yeah.
and it was one of the lowest points of my life. I was really depressed, and so I got those sticks out, and I threw those sticks, and the stick said something about like two men went on a journey for something, or I can't remember what exactly it said, but it was something about two men going on a journey together.
Yes.
And so I said to myself, whoever contacts me next, whoever it is, I am going to devote myself to whatever project they have.
Really?
Yeah,
And was
yeah.
that the our show?
That was our show.
Oh
I
my
waited.
god! You never told me that.
Yeah, yeah. I waited 3 days, and then you called saying you wanted to do a solo show.
Yes. I wanted to
So,
do a solo show, but I hated solo shows. Can you help me?
I know. But I had been waiting around for 3 days. Like, okay, who's going to call? Who is it going to be?
Wow. I never
Yeah,
knew that.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Isn't that?
amazing. And
Yeah,
that was a great journey we went on. That was really that I think for both of us, really
right.
a turning
Exactly.
point in our lives for sure.
Yeah. I
Oh,
kind of
and
figured like
so much
this
fun.
show here is kind of a continuation of that journey. So it's still
Absolutely.
going on. But
Absolutely.
But imagine if like a couple of Mormons had shown up
Yeah.
at my door,
Yeah.
or I
Some
had that neighbor living behind me who was a porn star. Remember, I used to always hear him arguing with his agent out back. Um, but I heard him argue with his agent, and it was like, hey, that kind of sounds like me arguing with my agent. So one time I saw him out front, and I was like, hey, I didn't know you were in the business. He's like, what? I go, yeah, I heard you talking to your agent there. I'm a writer and stuff. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a porn star. So if he had brought something up in those 3 days, my life could have been completely different.
God, yeah. Hey, I want to shoot a movie with you. You would have been like, all right, here's the journey.
It's got a lot of Proustian references to it in it. So. In Search of Time's Lust or something. I don't know.
That's so amazing. I did not know that. I did not know that.
Yeah. And so again, it's like, was that really predicting something, or is that just the I Ching giving me it could have been anything, I guess. Whatever it was, I was like, I'm going to devote myself to whatever. I kind of made it happen.
It had to affect you in some way.
Right.
I mean, you probably still would have done it if I called, but it sort of had this, more profound, effect. That's amazing.
Or who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have even answered the phone. Maybe I would have been so depressed. I would have been like, and then in the Victorian era, you had, of course, spiritualism with seances.
Yeah.
And Powell says that a lot of the skepticism about psychic phenomenon grew from that time period because of the scandals linked to claims of psychic abilities with con artists who preyed upon people's vulnerabilities.
Right. You ever been to a seance?
No, I haven't. Have you been to a seance?
No. Yeah. I've never been.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe at some point, maybe we'll have to go to a seance just to see.
Didn't Houdini try to debunk seances? Yeah, he was a big debunker. Those magicians and escape artists, they really want to debunk this stuff.
Right. Well, that's what James Randi, his whole point was, if you investigate this stuff, you should take a professional magician with you because they can recognize what's just being faked or what's real phenomenon.
Yeah.
And in an article called Recalling Pseudopsychic Demonstrations, Richard Wiseman and Robert Morris talk about the first studies done on eyewitness testimony in 1887. And what these experiments were is that they held a fake seance. And then they asked people afterwards what they had seen and what they had witnessed. And the researchers found that people would recall different events, and forget other events and even remember events in the wrong order or sequence.
God, humans are terrible at observing stuff,
And if you think about it, you're in a room where it's dark and you're holding hands. Right. You can't look around. They're told, go in to look at the candle or close your eyes and think hard.
You're predisposed to something weird happening, which is,
Yeah. Yeah. And then in 1932, there was another set of experiments based on those original ones. And people at that seance tended to underestimate the number of people in the room. They failed to report major disturbances in the room, for example, the movement of the experimenters. So there were other people walking around in the room, but they were so focused on the candle or so focused on the seance that they didn't notice that other people were walking around and leaving the room and coming back.
It's amazing that we haven't gone extinct, really. We're so flawed.
Yeah. And that one was interesting because they also experienced the illusory movements of objects. So again, it was kind of like, in the dark, or it's kind of dark, it's like, I think I saw that move over there.
Well, yeah, with all of this stuff, it's always, whenever it's been recorded, either audio or visual, it's always scratchy and screwed up. I mean, it's like, the Sasquatch, Bigfoot films, it's always from afar. There's always stuff wrong with the film. You never get it in HD. You never get it in 4K.
Yeah. And then when you do, I'm always a little suspicious of that. Like, okay.
Yeah, well, now you can fake anything. Now you can't trust video anymore. Video is no longer evidence.
Right. We need a type species, you know what I mean? Or we need something that's repeatable because.
Yeah.
And with the lights on, with the lights on.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
But then psychical research and phenomena really took off in the 1930s with a researcher by the name of J.B. Rhine, Rhine, and his colleague Carl Zener, Zener, at
Wow.
Duke
Ryan and Zener. Here
University.
come Ryan and Zener. Shut up. Here they come.
Don't even think about him. Don't even think about him. And Rhine, his book, he came out with a book in 1934 where he actually coined the term extrasensory perception.
Oh.
And yeah, and what Rhine and Zener did is they created a deck of 25 cards with 5 different suits on them.
Oh, okay. I know these cards.
Yeah, that's from the beginning of Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters, yeah.
Yeah.
You got the squiggly lines, you got the square, a triangle, a circle,
exactly. Yeah,
a picture of Beavis, a penis. Of course, you got to have a penis.
That's like the Joker. That's like the Joker in the deck.
That's the one everybody's thinking about.
Yeah.
Penis. Yes.
Penis. Just keep saying it over and over again. Every single one. Penis. Penis. And anyway, what they did is students were asked to guess the symbol on the cards without looking at them. And the reason they came up with that deck is that they thought it would make the experiments more neutral. So originally they had come up with they would use just a normal deck of cards. And then they realized people had certain preferences for suits or numbers that they would just naturally go to. So they came up with that Zener deck they came up with because they thought that was something people normally wouldn't think about.
Okay.
And the other thing, by having it 25 cards, it was very easy to calculate if someone's responses were above the statistical probability of chance.
I see.
So
you just
with 5 sets,
by 4.
Yeah. So if you had 5 suits, 25 cards, by chance, you'll probably get 5 of those right. So people who could guess more than 5 correctly, obviously there was something was happening. Something was going on there.
Okay. All right.
And so what would happen is in the experiments, the sender, the person with the deck, would sit across from the receiver and for both ends of a table, and there would be a partition between them. And then the sender would take out a card, look at it, and try to send it over to the receiver to see if they could guess what it was.
It's so fun. I could play that game all night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No winners or losers in that
one.
And then the other one they would do is the sender would pull out a card and not look at it. Just pull out the card and then see if the receiver could pick it out. And that was supposed to test for clairvoyance.
Oh, where you can just see the card.
Right. And then there was an experiment they did called down through. And that's where they would shuffle the cards, set them in front of the receiver, and then without touching them, the receiver would have to go down through each card through the deck and try to name them out without touching or anything. They were supposed to see
name all of them?
Yeah, or try to.
Well, forget about that one. God.
And then there was an experiment where the receiver would try to guess the order of the cards in the deck before they were shuffled. Okay.
Why? What? I don't understand. Why is
that? Well, that was supposed to be, again, a test of precognition. Like you knew how they were going to end up before they.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in 1931, Rhine found an undergraduate named A.J. Lensmeyer.
Oh, here's Lensmeyer.
Yeah.
Look at that guy.
Yeah. In 600 guesses of Zener cards spread out over 2 months, he had correctly guessed 238 cards instead of the 120 predicted by chance.
Whoa.
According to McVaugh and Mouskoff. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Mouskoff and McVaugh in their article, they also say, or Eysenck and Groome actually say that in 1932, one of Rhine's subjects, Hubert Pierce, was right 40% of the time.
Wow. Here comes Pierce. Don't think about anything.
Yeah.
Wipe your mind clear.
But that sounds
Jeez.
really impressive, right? And then,
Yeah, and his name is Pierce. I get a
right.
mental picture of him. Maybe I'm having a psychic experience right now, but I see him as like this intense guy with arched eyebrows, and
Yeah.
here comes
Yeah.
Pierce.
And Schick and Vaughn note that out of nearly 100,000 attempts, Rhine's subjects averaged 7.1% correct identifications per run. And that's, again, above what chance would be. So he was getting a lot of really good results. And then you're like, well, what's the problem with that? That seems pretty convincing evidence. Well, there were some problems that came out later with the experiments themselves.
Oh, here we go. There was a mirror behind him the whole time.
It's kind of like that way. Eysenck and Groome say that while Rhine was probably honest, some of his researchers confessed to cheating while carrying out the ESP experiments.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Just to make it look successful. It was back in the 30s.
Jesus.
And although he had, he said that Rhine claimed to have used a scientific approach, there were numerous flaws in his research. For example, Hubert Pierce was allowed to shuffle the cards himself.
Oh, boy. You gave the cards to Pierce?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And he dog-eared him. He dog-eared him.
Exactly. Or he could have been a magician. You don't know. Like he could have, a magician's trick to pick out a card. I mean, that's something else. Pierce also helped check his own answers.
I got that one right.
Right. And so again, the psychologists Leonard Zuzny and Warren Jones say that chance was clearly not producing Rhine's results. It was opportunities to establish the identity of the cards by sensory means. These were so numerous and so readily available that much of Rhine's work during the 1930s could be safely ignored.
Rhine. What happened to his partner? Zinner?
I think he continued on with it. I mean, they continued to research it.
Yeah.
And then again, people couldn't replicate their results with that. I mean, sometimes it wasn't consistent. So it's hard to say that there was actually some sort of force or power going on there when it couldn't be replicated.
No, that's a no. Yeah. It's gotta happen more than once.
And then in the 1974, a researcher named Chuck Honorton came up with the Gansfield technique, or whole field technique. And what Eysenck and Groome say that Honorton's thinking was that if ESP actually exists, it's probably a very weak energy.
Okay.
And for that reason, we have to tune out all of the other stimuli that we have in the world.
Oh, they put him in a tank or something, huh?
Right. Well, even better. They cut ping pong balls in half and put ping pong balls over their eyes, and then put headphones on them.
Why ping pong balls? Can't you just use it? Of all things, he must have just had some ping pong balls hanging around at the lab. That's the craziest thing in the world. Ping pong balls.
Yeah, and then they
cut them in half. How do you cut a ping pong ball in half?
Isn't that what
hacksaw in the lab?
Yeah, I think isn't that what Kermit's eyes are? I kept thinking of Kermit the Frog's eyes.
And they would look so weird. And how do you keep them in there? Do you super glue the ping pong balls in there?
I don't know. You would put them over the subject's eyes, and then you would. I also read where they would shine a red light on it just to kind of make it a fuzzy haze.
What's wrong with the blindfold? What's wrong? What happened to blindfolds? Jesus.
And so what they would do then after that happened, you would have a sender in another room would also look at some video and then try to send an image to the subject or the receiver that was, had the ping pong balls on and the headphones.
I can't get past the ping pong balls. I'm sorry. It's just so bizarre.
But anyway, Honorton had a lot of really good results. Like his results were coming back that it looked better than chance that there was ESP. But once again, there was no way to replicate the results of when people tried to replicate the Gansfield technique. it was never consistently the same.
I'm telling you, they were doing something inside those ping pong balls. Like they were little something. It's just fishy.
Yeah.
Hey, why does Hansfield always cover his subject guys with ping pong? I don't know. I don't know,
He turns the camera off, too. They're just telling what he's doing in there. A couple just things that we need to think about when we're thinking about ESP. In the book Will Storr versus the Supernatural, the journalist Will Storr interviews Dr. Mark Salter, who's a psychiatrist in London. And Salter tells Storr to try a trick. And he says, imagine a version A and a version B of yourself and have a conversation in your head between them. Like, what are you doing tonight? Well, I thought I might write up this interview. Well, you could, but there's also some great television on.
I do that all the time. That's all going on in my head.
I know, me too.
I type it down and then sell it as a script.
Well, Salter says, carry on like that for an hour and see where you end up. And I promise you'll scare yourself. And what Salter says is that before long, the first voice will become more extroverted, more outgoing, and prefer art and German techno, he says. And the second voice will be quieter, more nervous, and like science and South American heavy metal, for example. In other words, what
South American heavy metal.
He's just giving an example.
That's a weird example.
I know. And Salter says, in other words, you will begin to develop distinct and consistent personalities for each of those voices.
Yeah, that's called writing. That's called writing.
well, he says it's just like a medium in their spirit guides. Like when they say that they can hear a voice of their spirit.
Oh, I see. They're tricking themselves into this.
Right.
I see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I get that.
Yeah. I think I mentioned on here before that's kind of when I was growing up. I created my own sort of father figure in my head who would answer questions to me. And so I read this. I'm like, yeah, that is true. Because after a while, that separate voice begins to take on its own personality.
Yeah, and if it goes too far, you're in the loony bin. That's what happens. We're all we're all on the edge here.
Yeah.
We're all
there's another thing which Morris notes an experiment in 1980 in which both believers in the paranormal, which were referred to as sheep, and non-believers, who were referred to as goats, were brought in to observe staged ESP demonstrations. And in one stage demonstration, the ESP was successful, and in another, it was not successful. And what the study showed was that sheep, or believers in the paranormal, saw the unsuccessful demonstration. It distorted their memories of it and stated that the ESP had actually occurred.
Wow. See, how do we all stay alive? I mean, how are we all not just, it just seems crazy that we can be tricked so easily.
Right. And again, it's that it's led certain people who believe in ESP, and I've even heard like ghost hunters say this too. It's all about the attitude of like, you have to have the right attitude. And if you don't believe, you're not going to see it.
Yes.
And when you have that argument, then it's very hard to convince, like, oh, scientists don't want it. It's like scientists do want to believe, but they want proof of it that can be replicated.
Yep.
And again, you can never really test anything if one of the prerequisites is to already believe in it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And so it may in fact be true, but we can't say that for certain until we figure out a way to prove that it is in fact true. 100%.
Right. And Schick and Von mentioned that, sometimes even people who say, well, I started out believing in it, but then the more I researched it, I realized it doesn't exist, or I don't believe in it now because after my research, and people will say, well, subconsciously, you never believed in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you're
it's
never,
very hard.
Yeah.
You can never
you
prove
can't
it.
win. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one other thing is that you mentioned it too, is that there are statements called Barnum effects, or it's called the Forer effect. And again, these are statements, and you brought them up earlier, that seem to us to apply uniquely to ourselves, but not to others, as Morris
Mm.
says. And the Encyclopaedia Britannica says a Barnum effect in psychology is the phenomena that occurs when individuals believe that personality descriptions apply specifically to them
Yes.
more so than other people, despite the fact that the description is filled with information that applies to everyone.
Yes. And it's
And
all in the performance and how you present it and the eye contact and just you use everything.
right, right. And so they say Encyclopedia gives examples of them. They would be like, you have an intense desire to get people to accept and like you. You know what I mean? If I was
Right.
reading it for you,
Okay.
trying to get a read
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you give too much on projects that don't work out. You know
God,
what I
you're
mean?
right. That's so
Yeah.
true.
You can be overly harsh on yourself and very critical.
Oh my God, you know me. Get out of my head.
I know. Every one of these I'm reading like, yeah, I am. And I'm reading the Encyclopedia Britannica, you know. Sometimes you can be loud, outgoing, and a people person, but other times you can be quiet, shy, and reserved.
My God, you got me.
I will say one of the best articles I read, though, in all this research was a 2019 article called Who Believes in ESP, Cognitive and Motivational Determinants of the Belief in Extrasensory Perception by Marija Brankovic. And she looked at whether there was a way to predict what type of people would believe in ESP more than others.
Mm.
And there's one thing that she found that had nothing to do with cognitive ability, and it had nothing to do with education, but it was more the type of cognitive style that the person used or used predominantly, because usually we all use a combination of the cognitive styles. And one cognitive style is intuitive, which means that you rely more on instinct and gut feelings and experience.
Yes.
And the
Like
other
that
one is,
woman that I dated.
yeah,
She just, yeah. And like when you read like Blink, and how
yeah,
your first take on things is often, dead on
yeah, yeah.
because your
And
brain
the
is
other
able
one's
to take stuff in without you thinking about it, without you filtering it.
right. Another one I read was about subliminal messages, which is what you're talking about with that. And
Yeah.
some of us may be more prone to picking up subliminal messages or
Mm.
cues that other people aren't. And
Mhm. Mhm.
again, that could come across as being very intuitive or very
Mhm.
psychic. But then
Yes.
again, the other type of cognitive experience is analytical, which means you're more deliberate, rational, and data driven. And
Mm.
Brankovic found in her research that a person who is more intuitive cognitive with a more intuitive cognitive style is probably more likely to believe in ESP.
Yeah. Duh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
But are there other cognitive styles? Because I feel like I'm neither. Is there one that's just stupid?
yeah, probably.
'Cause I feel like that's my cognitive style.
I think I read where there's most of us have some of it because the intuitive is what keeps us alive because you can't deliberate over everything
Right.
in your lifetime.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so we're just talking about like predominant, which one you use predominantly or which one you go back
Right.
for, because we all use a combination of the two.
Right. Right.
And in an article for Psychology Today, David Ludden gave an example. And he asked the question, and it's like a word problem from math. A bat and a ball cost $1.10 in total. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball?
10 cents.
Exactly. And he said, if you answered 10 cents, you answered like most people and followed your intuition. However, the answer is wrong
Oh shit.
because if they're together $1.10 and the one is $1 more to get to $1.10, then the ball has to be 5 cents.
What? Wait. Oh, I see. Oh my goodness.
Do you see what he's talking
Yeah.
about there?
So that's a way to see which mode you're in
Right, right,
predominantly.
right.
Interesting.
because most people will immediately say 10 cents, because when you are just jumbling through life and just trying to pick out things,
Yeah.
it makes sense that it will be 10 cents.
This is why I'm a total idiot. I just jump at it. I don't stop and think. God damn it.
Yeah. I was doing this alone. Like when I was typing this up by myself, I was like 10 cents. 10 cents. So, and then it was like, what? What do you mean it's not right? It's not right.
Oh, God.
And then just one more thing. Most people, or a lot of people they found, use psychical experience, and I'm a lot. It brings meaning to people's lives, which I can understand that too.
Yeah.
When I was drunk and alone and depressed, I felt like I was having more psychical experiences than now.
Yeah. Well, I think the extrasensory perception, that we have a sense, and it's for good reason, that we don't know everything,
Right.
And so, and that's a sane way of thinking. If you think that and then you get really weird, and there are things we will never know, and never be able to know. And so that opens the door to a lot of stuff, a lot of spirituality, a lot of spiritual stuff in my book, that's where it lies. Like the spirituality for me is in the seeking, not the finding.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. To me, we're all just trying to get by and find something that gives meaning to our lives, whatever that may be. And that's why I'm hoping, I keep an open mind. I'm like, I hope that there is psychic ability and it can be proven. And we have this other way to communicate and connect with each other.
It's just fun and humble to recognize that you don't know everything, and that so you just don't know, and that's fun. That's a good thing, I think. But it's also scary. It's also scary.
We're out there. We're just hanging on. We're just hanging on.
We're just, we're moving. We're in a universe that's expanding at light speed, and we're this little speck of nothingness.
Yeah.
I mean, let us be. Okay, I'll go to a seance.
Just give me some hope. Give me some hope with it. All right, John. So now we're going to try. I got us some Zener cards.
Oh, here we go.
So it's going to be a
Zener cards.
Star,
square. See, I can't even say what they are. Squiggly lines, wavy lines. Okay. Is that what you call them? All right.
Yeah, wavy lines, squiggly lines. Cross.
Plus. Oh, there's the plus. Okay. And what else you got? Circle.
A circle.
Okay.
So now I'm going to shuffle these.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to try to send them to you. I'm going to take my glasses
very good
off.
Friends. We've known each other a long time. You feel like, no matter how weak it would be, we'd have a good, strong connection here.
Right.
And I'm going to see the reflection in your glasses.
I'm taking those off. Because that's one of the things people complained about in Ryan and Zener's work is they were like, one thing when their first set of deck of cards that they had been printed so thickly that you could read them through the card itself.
We're such idiots. Oh God.
And then the other one was definitely people said like, oh, you could see it in his glasses. You know what I mean? Okay, John, here's the first one.
Okay.
I'm going to hold it. I'm looking at it, but I'm holding it off camera.
Okay, plus. I'm going with plus. Oh, squiggly lines. So close.
Okay. All right, we'll do 5.
I was going to say squiggly lines.
Really?
No.
There was one guy they said he always missed it, but what he chose was the next card. Like when his guesses all corresponded with the next card.
All right, then I'm going with plus. What's the next
Again
card?
with plus. No, it was a square.
All
right. One more. Here we go. Come on.
All right. Really picture it in your mind.
I am. You try harder.
Okay. I will. It's my fault. I'm going to go with squiggly lines.
Oh.
Damn it, the star. You've got them in order. Wait, once they've passed, have they been eliminated? Is it a process of
well, there's 5 of each in the deck. You know what I mean? So it can come back. It can come back.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm in his head. I'm looking around in his head. God, there's so much in here. I can't really focus. Stop thinking about Proust.
It's all barbecue and sex. All right, I'm really focused.
Square.
Oh,
damn it!
Like, all right. Are you getting? Does something just come to you, or are you just calling them out? Are you getting?
No,
do you feel like something?
It's like I'm doing a thing where it's like what's on my mind, you know. But I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Okay.
Let's really try this time, John. Stop fucking.
Yeah. You should shock me. That would.
All right.
Let me focus.
We'll get the ping pong balls out.
Plus sign.
Oh.
God damn it!
So we're being.
If you're so what? Hey, don't I have some kind of? If I don't guess any of them right, isn't that better than average? And I have some other. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm so not ESP that I'm something else.
Maybe you're
whatever I sense we know won't be the thing. See what I'm saying?
Maybe you're seeing a vision of another Zener series that you're going to take in the future. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you're actually demonstrating clairvoyance.
Those cards are so cool, though. They're just immediately recognizable. I'm so glad you've got them. That's so fun.
Yeah. I was, I don't know, probably if we went through the whole deck, we would expect by chance you to get 5 out of the 25. Is what
Jesus. Well, I wasn't. I was what? 7 for 0 or 6 for 0, something like that.
6 for 0.
Jesus. I better get on a run soon. All right, I'm going to think of one of them. Let me just think of one in my head. Okay? I'm just going to think of one, and you tell me what it is. Hold on.
Send it to me. Give it to me, baby.
I've got it.
Squiggly lines.
Oh, I was going plus.
Really?
I'm so fascinated with the plus.
Yeah. you have a predisposition for the plus, I think.
I'm just so stupid I can't remember any of them.
All right, John. So we've come to the end of our ESP discussion.
Well, I've got some ESP. I'm going to predict the future.
Okay.
Right after we turn this off, I'm going to the bathroom. I see that in my future.
I thought for sure. I have to say I don't, because I thought for sure you would. I had a vision of you running out in the middle of the recording.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go. You know. In fact, this is human number 2 signing off.
And this is human number 1. Thanks for joining us, everybody. If you enjoyed this discussion about ESP or any of the things we discussed, please tell a friend about it. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram now. And I still haven't had a chance to figure out the Substack, but I will.
Yeah, we haven't gotten it. We're moving. We're slowly moving forward. And also, you know, listen to your doctor. If he says it's time for a colonoscopy, get out there, everybody. It's one of the few cancers that can be nipped right in the bud.
Right.
And
get it early.
Yeah.
Get it early.
Get it early. Get in there.
Plus, you'll enjoy those 3 hours that you can't remember.
Whatever that. Oh, my God. Is it incredible? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I love you, man. And we'll have to ship the cards to me. We'll test you next time.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. We love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.